I don't have anything to sing.
Hey everybody, welcome back.
Hey, everybody.
It's been a little while. How's it going?
Oh, it's going. It's been a while. I think our last recording was February-ish
Something
when we
like that,
recorded
yeah.
Heroes.
It's been like probably about a month and a half or so. So
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I
How have
take
you been, man?
I take I take full responsibility for that. But we're back.
We're back.
Dun
Kind of.
dun dun
Sort of.
dun dun
No, we're back.
now. Anyway,
Cut that out, please. Like, edit that all out. No, I'm kidding. You can keep it.
we always start
How's it
with
going, Rob?
we always start with
I don't know what that was.
usually you on the Bowie series belting out one of the tunes from the album, so I'm allowed one Back in Black, you know.
Why AC/DC of all bands?
Well, we're back. No, I'm not wearing black though. I think you are. So.
Charcoal. It's close
Oh,
enough.
my hair is kind of black, so there we go.
Your hair is black.
There we go. What's up, everybody? How's it going? It's something a little different today.
A little different today. Be prepared. Another one of those goofy recordings. It is late for us. Oh my goodness, it's almost 10 o'clock.
Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
so we're gonna be a little silly, a little goofy, but we got a fun one today. You wanna tell our viewers what we're gonna be ranting about today?
Sure. So the Bowie series, as you all know, is pretty intense, and it's usually a lot of like research on both of our parts and listening and stuff. A lot of preparing and all that stuff. So we wanted to do something sort of not mindless but easy for us, something that we could just rant on. We've done one of these before where we ranted on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So, as you can see by the title of this video or podcast or whatever you're watching / listening to us on, this is going to be about the state of modern music and our thoughts on it in the form of a rant. Do you have anything to add?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I do not. Other than this is one we've been talking about doing for a while.
Yeah.
Which has made it very difficult to not share my thoughts with you prior. Because I have been excited to talk about this.
Oh, good.
So
I'm
this
glad.
has been
Yeah.
in the making for quite some time. So I say we just kick it. But before we do that,
All right, I'll stop. No more.
you're in the goofier mood so far, sir. I think what we should do is maybe give summary of your thoughts. I'll do the same, and then the conversation goes where the conversation goes, my friend.
Yeah, that's pretty good. As far as summary for your thoughts, it's kind of like a multifaceted sort of topic. So I don't know if you want to give us a place to start, and then I can do sort of like a kind of riff on that. If you had any idea of where to start.
All right. So I will say, I've really given this one a lot of thought.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'll start out by saying, in terms of popular music, and I'm going to really emphasize the term popular music.
Yeah,
this.
that should definitely agree.
Yeah, I think popular music today, in a nutshell, is garbage.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to look at it just from that standpoint, music is at its worst. Whether it's rap music, whether it's country music, where I don't even want to refer to it as country music, it's redneck pop as far as I'm concerned, because country music is pretty fucking great. So redneck pop. Yeah, I mean, I could just go on as far as genres go, but in terms of what's considered mainstream, I think the state of music is at an all-time low for sure. Having said that, remove that out of the equation, and I think the state of music today is probably better than ever.
So
taking that out of everything.
So that basic premise, which I think we had the same idea as that being our basic premise for the video. I'm on board with all of that, what you said.
Mhm.
There's a little slight caveat to the second part of that.
Okay.
The whole it being better than ever, but we'll get into that when we get to that part. So maybe what we could do is divide it in half in a sense, where we could talk about why we think popular music is so bad now, and then we can go to why we think the music industry. And I guess I'm assuming you mean the music industry itself is probably in the best place that it's been.
I think the music industry, that's one argument I have, but I think, and we'll get into. I like that. Let's chunk it into
Mm-hmm.
those two bits there. But I also do think there's a lot of great music today too.
Yeah.
I want to focus on that as well. So okay, so then let's elaborate on that first bit then. See, folks, we're just winging it as we go here.
Easy.
Okay, so what I think is interesting is, in a way, if you look back to, the late 50s and the early 1960s, it's almost like with music, we're coming full circle. And what I mean by that is we're back to a singles mindset. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, again, I mean, going back 60, 70 years ago, that was the format for music. The album or the LP format wasn't something that really became a thing until the mid 1960s. I've always identified 1965 specifically. I think a record like Rubber Soul was like that defining popular album that was like, hey, no, this can be, this is art right here. A set of songs that are actually coherent, they flow together, not just two singles and the rest is just filler crap. Whereas I think now we're back into that mindset again, which is a shame, as someone who has gone on and passed videos, recordings, about how much I take the album listening experience seriously.
Yeah, and that's something that, just to have you pause for a second, that we share, so you're not kind of getting that perspective, I think. Because there are people who, a lot of people are just, they're songs people. They don't really listen to full albums. In fact, I'd say we're probably in the minority of people. A lot of people
with
don't.
our generation, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people sit down and listen to whole albums anymore. And I've always been a huge fan of the album listening experience. But yeah, so I just thought that should be said.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good point, because I know Cass and I literally just had this conversation the other day. Maybe not to get too far ahead of myself, but Cass and I have talked about collaborating and doing a Beach Boys discography series. We both just have a mutual love for the Beach Boys. And she was saying to me, she's like, it is gonna be a little weird doing this because I don't listen to albums, and I don't listen to albums the way you do. And that's just going off of what you just said. I mean, we're very much in this, not even so much singles mentality, actually, more like this playlist mentality.
Yeah.
Which, don't get me wrong, I enjoy listening to a great playlist. I enjoy making playlists myself.
I'm definitely kind of a playlist guy too.
Yeah,
sure.
No, and I am too. Just to make that clear, but I think that's really more the mentality today, or at least that's the way people listen to their music. A playlist of the latest whatever singles that are popular at the moment. So
you got me thinking too, a little off subject, but it's interesting how the different generations have listened to music differently, because when records and cassettes and 8-tracks and things were the norm, you had, the only way you would really hear a playlist would be if you made a mixtape or got a bootleg or something like that, or I guess listen to the radio, because the DJ would just play random songs. So if you're just at home listening to music, you couldn't just make a playlist on Spotify or even burn CDs or anything like that. You had to listen to a full record, or a full like I said, cassette tape. And then for our generations, we're like just a couple years apart. I guess we'd technically both be millennials. Like when I was in high school and you were in high school, it was like burning CDs, or the iPod just came out. So playlists were stuff that you could sort of make, but it was still almost in an album format because you had a certain amount of space to work with, especially with CDs. And now with stuff like Spotify, Apple, all those streaming services, it's so incredibly easy to make a playlist of anything that you want, that it's again changed the listening experience. So,
what I kind of just got out of that was I think you're essentially blaming our generation for being the reason for this. No, but I think that's such a good point, all joking aside. And I do think, in a way, what was kind of unique about that is we were kind of doing both. Like you said, we were very much millennials, like the iPod generation.
Mm-hmm.
So while we were still purchasing CDs, what were we doing with those CDs? We were ripping them onto our iPods, or maybe we were still burning CDs, whatever. And it was a mix of sometimes, like I remember burning you copies of albums.
Yep.
But I remember also burning, playlists. Only we referred to them as mix, CDs back then.
Yeah, or making your own greatest hits of a band or something. Yeah.
But that's more or less what making a playlist is, right? So
Yeah.
I think that is, all joking aside, I almost feel like our generation was sort of the transition to where we are at today, as far as how people collectively, specifically younger people, of course, do listen to their music.
Yeah, and I would yes blame it on younger people, but it's a result of the technology, And I mean, both of us, like as much as I love collecting records, I know there's people who are still CD people. There's even people who, believe it or not, I read somewhere that even cassettes are on the rise in terms of like sales, which that blew my mind. It's not a lot, but it's still crazy that it's on the rise. But streaming service, I think, for almost everybody is now the standard. I mean, the convenience of it is just undeniable,
There is, and I don't mean to cut you off, because I do want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But maybe let's touch base on that.
Yeah.
When we get to the second.
Yeah, we're going off track. So why is modern music bad? So we're talking about the singles format.
Yeah. So I don't even know where to begin with this, because, I think back to really every previous decade, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Look, even the 90s and 2000s. I'll even include the 2000s with where I'm going with this. Even when there were singles, whether I liked the music or not, at least it was good. Right? Maybe elaborate on that more. I feel like with, popular music back then, there was still a level of ambition. And again, whether I like it or not's irrelevant. But I think, I think of, I'll use the Beach Boys again as an example. I'm very much a fan of the Pet Sounds on Brian Wilson Beach Boys, but those earlier Beach Boys singles, I Get Around, Surfin' USA, Surfer Girl, Good Vibrations is a little later, but you really listen to those songs, and yeah, maybe some of the lyrics are, silly. You can kind of consider it like boy bandish of that time, whatever. But my God, there were, whether it was the stunning instrumentation or some of the production that was going on, and that's not just limited to the Beach Boys, but I think at least popular music at one point, and really for the longest time, up until 10-15 years ago, I just feel like I feel like there is just a level of ambition, and I think that's very much missing today. Look, I'm all for, you know, as much as I love, my lyrical music and I love, the stuff that I like, I'm all for just listening to fun music. I want to make that clear.
Mm-hmm.
But I just I feel like that level of ambition is just missing today. What are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of thoughts.
Oh, well,
Uh,
take it away, my friend.
yeah. Let me think how I want to organize them. So I would agree with what you said, and I would say like this is a pretty simple thing to start with is that the worst of some of the more, let's say, divisive periods of music like before, say, like you said, maybe the last 10, 15 years ago. I can think of particularly in like the early 2000s when I was in high school, there was a lot of music that I really didn't like. Um, Everybody talks about like a lot of the excesses of the 80s or even some of that more cookie cutter music that came out of the 70s and 60s. Like, I honestly think some of the worst of that is even better than some of what's the best in the modern era. And I think the reason I think that is because not that there aren't talented people making music now at all, because again, stating loud and clearly, we're talking specifically about popular music, the big giant artists that are all over the media and everything. The Lady Gagas, the Nicki Minaj's. I don't think I need to name all of them. I think the problem is that a lot of it sounds the same to me, and a lot of it is it's okay. So you know how like with just about every movement of music, there was just like, say something like the Beatles. Okay, the Beatles came to America. The Beatles revolutionized pop and rock music. Okay, what happened after the Beatles came to America is you suddenly had the British invasion. You had all sorts of bands that were trying to imitate the Beatles, trying to capture that sound, and it became very derivative. And then eventually there was a different movement, and then a different sound came, and that has progressed through not just rock and roll and pop, but just about every genre of music in the last century or so. With the modern music, it's almost become like a derivative form of a derivative form of a derivative form of music, where it's become so homogenized that it's, to me, to a person that, and I'm not trying to sound like pretentious or like I'm some music snob or something, because I listen to some stuff that I think a lot of people wouldn't like, but I think what you're getting is that it's so homogenized, and in a sense this is the problem with, I think, the industry itself sort of dying. And by the industry I mean like the big record companies and a lot of how the business was dying, is that because there's not much money in music anymore, in buying and selling records and stuff like that, bigger companies and things like that aren't willing to take risks. So if something sounds good, you're going to get a million copies of it, and it's just going to keep getting more diluted and more diluted and more diluted. And I think that's the problem, the biggest problem, and I think we're just seeing it really, really accelerate in the last, say, like 10, 15 years. And I think that's the huge reason why popular music, there'll be a lot of people who listen to it who say, why does it all sound the same? Why is it all just kind of, I don't know, cookie cutter and just,
Yeah. I actually, I think it's an interesting take. I actually disagree with some of that a little bit.
Well, hold on, I'm not done
Isn't
yet.
that what we want, is to disagree?
That is what we want to disagree, but that's one facet. And there's a video that I was talking to you about before we recorded that people should look at. It's got a ton of views. If you haven't seen it, it's called "Why Is Modern Music So Awful?" And the guy talks about just the sound of the actual music, solely that. And he talks about different things that pretty much most of the major like top 40, I want to say record, but like songs and things that have been released suffer from. One of the big things is compression, and being a guy who is a edits videos and stuff like that, I understand what compression does to just an audio track, and that is one reason why, with, for example, compression, that you don't hear music feels less layered and less what's the word? It just doesn't. It sounds hollow. I think a lot of the music itself, and I think that's one problem. But there's a lot of similar traits that a lot of popular music follow, or that a lot of popular music has, which I think has really given it that homogenized sort of sound and feel to it, in my opinion. So I don't know.
Yeah, so that bit I do agree with, and I think that goes back to my point, one of the points I was making before with popular music of the past. That ambition, whether it be the production. I do agree with you with a lot of the production techniques that are used today, that compressed sound like you were describing.
And I have no problem with electronics, because there's great electronic music. It's not
right.
That should be stated. Yeah.
Yeah. Same. That bit I agree with you. That hollow sound. What I did disagree with, what I was bringing up to you before, was despite not liking a lot of popular music today, I don't think it all sounds the same. That's the one compliment I will give it. And that might tie into our second part of this discussion as well, too. I think the lack of record labels is a great thing.
Yes.
The fact that there is basically no music industry, I think, is fantastic. And I think what makes music today great, whether it's popular music or more underground music, indie music, again, forget whether I like it or not for a second, put that off to a side. I think what today's music has going for it is artists are able to take more risks. Again, whether it's good or bad is that's
that
your
I
own
would agree with.
opinion, right? But even stuff I don't like, there is a level that I admire that with the music itself, they are able to take more of a risk a little bit. So you're not, I guess where I'm getting at is you're not seeing, I don't think you're seeing a lot of similarities, whereas you did, like in the 70s. I mean, the 70s are probably my favorite decade of music, but I think the 70s was probably one of the worst decades when it came to just everybody copying each other. My go-to example with that is always Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin's a good band, overrated, but good band. But there were so many bands trying to replicate that sound.
But
it's like, where's the originality? Whereas I do think you're seeing that less with today's popular acts.
Well, the only thing is that I would say about that, though, is that at least even the bands that were sort of the copycat bands, even if their sound wasn't original, I still think that the talent was there, and I'm gonna have a lot more respect for somebody playing not original music, but actually playing. I mean, this right here could go into my personal preference, so I'll admit that. But they're actually playing instruments and know how to actually structure a song, and their music can still sound, pleasing if derivative, sure, which is why I say that. Which is why I say that. But it's almost like the very soul of music in a lot of ways today has been just sucked away,
But I think all of that, what you just said, is meaningless if you don't have your own original sound. It's one thing to be influenced by another artist, but to be a carbon copy of something
Yeah.
because it's popular in the now, despite the fact that you could play your your instrument, whatever the case may be. I think all of that is
It depends.
personally
It
irrelevant.
depends on how. It depends on like the band or the artist
Sure.
and how they do it. Because I mean, there's clearly bands that really copycatted other bands, but became super famous and respected too. So it's we're getting kind of in the realm of personal opinion, but I'm curious. Like I don't know. It's weird. It's like you said. There's this odd juxtaposition between what I think is pretty bad popular music and like you said also there's a lot of great independent music and at the same time while it almost seems like the bigger acts are more restricted because they have to have a certain sound and a certain image whereas the sort of more self-made independent artists if they do make it and they do make it on their own terms, they can do whatever they want because they're not beholden to record label pressure and pretty much run their own show, you know.
And that's the beauty. And I don't know if you want to make this the transition um, to the second part of this debate. I think that's the beauty
Yeah.
of music today is what you just said there. Um, despite you know my personal gripes, and I think this is what we're in agreement on that popular music today is pretty much 90% garbage. You might have a higher number than me as far as that goes, from what it sounds like. But there really is so much great music out there. And I think that's where, again, not having the music industry or much of a music industry
Yeah.
today is great. Again, you have yeah, might be that financial component, which I don't even want to get into that because that could be a whole separate video altogether. Um, but as far as artists being able to do what they want, take risks, there's no outside pressure, which I think brings back that originality, that diverse nature. I think about a lot of the music that I listen to, contemporary music, past 10 years, it's more diverse than any other decade. And I think, again, that's because you don't have the pressure of the powers that be. In addition to the era that we live in as well. I
Yeah.
mean, the fact that we have your Spotify's, but your band camps and whatever else people use nowadays. Um, you know, anybody can make music, but anybody can promote their music. You don't need management. You don't need a record label. You want to make money. That's a
Well,
that's a
that's what I was gonna.
different thing.
That's
But
the only problem for art. Like, it's great for
yeah,
artists creatively, but as far as making a living, I not an artist, so I don't know specifically some of the
hmm
details. But I can imagine it's very difficult because, unfortunately, I mean, it sounds like from a lot of stories that like horror stories I've heard from bands from, you know, even you know, the well, I don't want to say the glory days, but like the old days, they got screwed by the record company a ton as it was. But it seems like now it's like you can't really, you can't make money so much on the actual records or like the tracks and stuff. You have to go out and tour and sell merch and when
right.
there's a pandemic and there's no live shows. I can't imagine what some of these smaller bands and artists are going through. Not being able to play for a whole year and everything. That's the kind of thing that kind of sucks. Is that I imagine it's a really hard, like a lot harder for musicians to make it financially, unfortunately. So it kind of comes with a price, literally.
Yeah, I mean, and that's definitely um, a fair point for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't really have a response to that because that's that's what that's what's make or break, for a lot of artists today.
Mm-hmm.
As far as that goes, being able to financially support themselves, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, it's strange. I think from a consumer perspective, listener perspective, I think we're pretty lucky, whether it's newer music or older music.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The fact that, I mean, I've been really into this band right now called Songs Ohio. They're like an alt country band from like the early aughts, and I discovered them through Spotify accidentally. I was listening to Bonnie Prince Billy, and Spotify's got that, algorithm or whatever where, hey, you like this? Listen to this. Listen to this. Listen to this.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's
it's great. I love that. That's how I discover so many new bands, but older bands too that might just be a little more underground or not mainstream, whatever. And from a consumer perspective, we're spoiled rotten. Let's be honest.
Yeah, there's so much music. So often now, like I don't know if it's just getting older or what it is. I don't think it's just getting older, but it could be part of that. But I find now sometimes that I just go back and listen to the same stuff because it's like there's so much that you get so overwhelmed. It's like, okay, this is a comfy album. I'm just gonna listen to that, kind of thing. Because it's sometimes it gets a little overwhelming with just the sheer amount of music that's available, So like you said, it really is great for the consumer.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm always excited to discover something new.
I have the same problem with like Netflix and stuff like that. That's why I'll end up watching the same stuff because it's like there's just too much to choose from.
Yeah. It's weird. It really is. I think you now dialing back a little bit. You brought up an interesting point before. I don't remember what it was. In context too with what we were talking about, but how, to be clear, even though we both feel that the past 10-15 years has kind of been a low for popular music, let's be clear that there have absolutely been points throughout the last 60-70 years of music that have been just bad, right? I think for me specifically, ones that really stand out are the mid 70s. I think as far as the 70s, I think the mid 70s are probably the worst, me personally, with what I listen to. I think same could be said about the mid 80s, because I think the early and later 80s are great. I think the late 90s was a low point, and I think the early 2000s.
I definitely agree with the late 90s. Yeah.
Once you get into like that like post grunge, like some of that garbage, like your Stains, your what else? Your Bushes, your Nickelbacks, all that crap.
Yeah.
The early aughts. So just to be clear, the point I was making was to be clear that there have been low peaks throughout. And although
all depends on your taste too,
And it all comes down to your taste for sure. And again, aside from popular music, overall, I love the 2010s. Some of my favorite records are from the past 10 years. But they're not what everybody else is listening to, I guess, is the difference with those albums versus, stuff that came out 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. It really is.
It's weird. Try not to be... it's almost hard for me, in a way, just really thinking about it. Like, I have to say, definitely for popular music, if we're just going by stuff you hear on the radio, then I'll stand by it. But it's hard for me to even judge because, trying not to have any bias on genre, it's not like I've listened to a ton of blues albums or a bunch of classical albums in the last 10 years, so I don't know what stuff like genres like that are under my radar are. You know, even rock to an extent, I don't listen to a ton of stuff. So, but I do know that there's been a lot of stuff on Spotify that I have heard from recent years that I have really enjoyed. And it's weird. It's a shame that you never hear stuff like that on the radio. I mean, not that I guess the radio's dying anyway, but you're never gonna, you know what I mean? These aren't artists that are never gonna win Grammys. They're never gonna be, you know, as well known. You know.
I was just looking.
Maybe that's for the best, though.
I was just looking at. Don't even get me started on the Grammys.
Yeah.
I was just looking at Rate Your Music albums that came out this year that I have listened to so far, because that's something I've been trying to make a conscious effort with more. It's just keeping up with newer music. You know, because I think if I look back these past 10 years, I could just come up with a top 5 for almost every year, just. So this year,
doing way better than me.
What was that?
You're doing way better than me.
Yeah, well, so this year I've been really like trying to keep that up. So I've listened to about like maybe 15 albums that have come out just this year so far. And I gotta tell you, just looking, for the most part, everything I've rated is in the 3-4 star range.
How many of those albums are by artists that are newer artists, though? That's my question.
So they're all newer artists.
They are newer artists? Okay. I had to...
But most people haven't heard of any of them, say one.
Yeah.
And the one actually came out the end of last year. I don't know if you're familiar with Phoebe Bridgers.
No.
She's indie, but she's been pretty popular as of late. She's great, by the way. I did give her album a 4. I think that's going to turn into a 4.5 pretty soon. That came out end of 2020. So that might be the biggest out of the batch. But yeah, no, all of these with the exception of Weezer's new album. They're the only older band. That I gave a 2-star, actually. That was not great, but you know, that's what you get being a Weezer fan. So, but that's a whole podcast for another day. So, I don't know. I thought yet again we were gonna have some more differing points for this one. I'm a little surprised.
You're kind of making me think that I should really listen to some more, I don't know, some newer music, because like I said to you, especially lately, I just kind of go back to a lot of the same stuff, and I like listening to a lot of the same stuff, and I have a huge pool that I can draw from, so it's not like I listen to the same 2 albums or something. But yeah, I haven't really been discovering a ton of music aside from Bowie albums, but like, and they're all old albums, but yeah, I should really look into some stuff from the last, decade or so, and try to see if I can come up with a little list. That could maybe be a little project we could do at some point. Try to come up with like 10 albums from the last 10 years or something.
I would love that. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's why from the very start of this conversation, I really wanted to specify popular music.
Yeah, because I've heard...
I can't emphasize enough.
Just through the grapevine, I hear, and it's hard not to hear a lot of it, and it's like, you just listen for a few minutes and you're like, what is this?
Right, because on the surface, that's all you hear. If you are someone that listens to the radio, or if you're, I know like your significant other listens to a lot of the same music you listen to. Mine, not so much. I mean, we have, like I mentioned to you, our shared love of the Beach Boys, the Beatles, and a few other bands too. But aside from that, everything that I've described in this, conversation that I loathe, unfortunately, my significant other does listen to. So I do hear it on a regular basis.
I'm a lucky man.
And what's that?
I said I'm a lucky man, I guess.
Yeah, you're a lucky man.
For me, it's like,
so
hey. For me, it's like she'll be like, hey, I never really got into Rod Stewart, but I'm really liking him. And then she's playing. I'm like, yeah, he's pretty good. Like, I never really got super into Rod Stewart, but now I'm like, yeah, he's pretty sweet. Should have discovered him a while ago. I'm glad I don't have to hear like, fuck Nicki Minaj. I can't stand her. I can't fucking stand Nicki Minaj. That is like the worst of the worst.
I think
stuff like that.
It's funny that you mentioned her because she's who, when I do think of how much I loathe popular music today, she's like the mental image that comes out every time. Like Nicki Minaj's fucking gross face is what comes out of my head every time I think about bad popular music today.
I knew it wasn't just me when I heard a song by, I think it was Britney Spears. It was like half a year ago or something. And I'm listening to the song. I forget where it came up. And I'm like, you know what? This is not as bad as I thought it was when I thought this was horrible when I was a kid, And like, for me to hear that song I forget what song it was, one of her big hits. For me to hear that song, not having heard it in many years, and going, wow, that's really not bad compared to now, I feel like that says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I was like, man, she's not horrible. Like, I can stand listening to this. Like, I hate I'll go to like a grocery store or something and they'll play some new song and I'm like, okay, I'm either getting really old and like curmudgeon-y, or this just sucks. Maybe a bit of both, but I think there's at least some of the latter.
Okay, boomer.
I'm a dad now. I gotta start complaining about the kids' music.
Oh, I mean, hey, I'm not a dad, but I am a teacher, so I feel like,
Oh God, no wonder.
It is similar, in that aspect.
Oh my God, no wonder you've been thinking about this a lot. You probably hear it all day.
I get very grumpy. My new thing is I sing Beatles songs to them during spelling tests, and they hate it. They hate it.
Sing Beefheart, they'll hate it even more.
They'll just walk out.
Yeah, just walk out.
But it was like a week ago, I think, or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. I was getting a spelling test, and I was seeing how many sentences I could make into a Beatle reference, whether it was like a line to a song or whatever the case. I did pretty good. I want to say it was like maybe like 5 or 6 I came up with that somehow were Beatles related.
Okay,
but
I think we've diverted from the topic enough. We should end it. But I think this is a nice poetic way to end it, because I know you have such a boner for the Beatles. Here, let me pose this question for you. Do you think if the Beatles were to come out today, that they would make it, that they would be really popular?
That's a tough one, because on one hand, I want to say yes.
The songwriting. Yeah, probably.
Because, well, the songwriting, yes. But I think something like early Beatles and say One Direction, which is probably not a good reference because they're not together anymore, is not too far off.
I think the Beatles that wouldn't fly today would be like Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour kind of stuff. I agree. I think the early poppier Beatles would probably be not necessarily the exact sound, obviously, but the songwriting alone, yeah, I think.
But, and I agree, but then I wonder if maybe it would fly, because I think, hear me out. hear me out, and you're gonna hate this comparison.
Oh
But
man.
hear me out, please. If there's, and I don't like this person's music, if there's an artist whose discography I can make parallels with the Beatles, would be Kanye West. Hear me out.
I'm just kidding. Okay.
The earlier Kanye was, you're more like your R&B fused hip hop that was really popular in the mid 2000s. And then sort of the second phase of Kanye, if you will, which is what we're in currently, has been more experimental and really out there for that type of music.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah,
and he's the biggest he's ever been. Again, forget whether you like it or not, if it's good or bad, but you know what I mean. So I don't know. But then again, rock music isn't popular today, so
no.
I do kind of go back to your original point. I don't think the latter day Beatles stuff would fly today.
My main issue, since we covered all this, maybe you can end it with your thoughts on this. But I tried to look at this objectively, okay, without my personal opinions, which is hard to do because it's a subjective thing. You're basically making the statement that modern music today is terrible. Well, that's in the end our opinion. There's some people probably say, oh, it's better than it's ever been. Probably a lot of people. I'm trying to approach, however, the way I look at it objectively, because I've never been like a big pop fan anyway. I always liked bands and musicians that were a bit, flew under the radar a little bit. I like popular stuff too, of course, but I've never been like a huge, the big popular artist. However, I always respected a lot of those really popular artists from previous decades. A guy like Michael Jackson. I'm not like an enormous Michael Jackson fan, but I love Thriller, like the album. I can really appreciate his music. I think he's a very talented person. A person like Madonna, I don't like her music, but I think she's talented, Yeah. I don't necessarily think that with people like Nicki Minaj. I think somebody like Adele is very talented. She's got a very good voice, I think somebody like Lady Gaga is talented, but I think her music's really generic for how so out of the box and everything that she is, and it's really weirdly generic for someone who claims to be so unique. But the point is, in terms of my personal opinion, my main problem is the music itself, and I was talking about that whole issue of compression and things like that. I like layered music. I like being able to listen to an album. I was talking to somebody at work about this the other day, and we were talking about the Beatles, like Sgt. Pepper, and we were talking about Dark Side of the Moon, and how those are albums that you can listen to over and over again, and you can just hear something new in it each time because they're so layered and there's so much in it. And like you were saying, there's that I don't know, that passion and that creative spark that these artists had, that in terms of popular music, is that still there? I don't know, or at the very least, is it there to the degree that it was? I don't think so. And I think it's
with very few popular acts. But I just want to emphasize everything you just said. It's still there today.
Yeah.
It's just not there with most.
Yes, I'm again talking. You have to be very specific because people get triggered. Yep. It's specifically about the popular artists. So that being said, for me personally, it's way far away from my personal tastes. Way far away. But even just trying to look at it objectively, it's, I don't know, it's hard for me to be too optimistic about at least popular music. Although like we were talking about, all the freedom that a lot of independent artists have is a good thing, and the consumer's doing better than anybody else. So, hurrah!
Yeah. I don't really know how to top that as far as final thoughts go. I think, I really try I really try to approach this as objectively as I can. Part of that is going to include your personal subjective
You
feelings,
have to,
no matter
yeah,
what. That's just being a human, right? I definitely think gone are the days. Like, I think this is going to be popular music for the
yeah,
foreseeable future. I think gone are the days where you're going to have your your big artists that really turn the scape of music. Like your Beatles, your God, like your Nirvana, stuff like these bands that came out that really changed the scope of the music scene. I think that's gone.
yeah.
Um, your closest to that maybe was Kanye West. Kanye's to blame of all this music today. There you go. My point is, I don't think we're gonna have anybody like that anymore, and
Yeah, I
I'm
don't think
okay
so
with
either.
that, quite frankly. Um, as much as I hate a lot of what's considered popular today, I'm okay with. Actually, not even okay. I'm very happy with the current state of music.
Yeah,
Um, I love that I'm spoiled rotten that I can discover a new band. Um, and there's no excuse, by the way. There's no excuse to find new music. I mean, yeah, again, we just got done saying what's popular is garbage, but great music is out there and there will always continue to be
yeah.
great music. And we're in this very fortunate time period where it's right here.
Yep.
It's right here. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, and I don't want it to change anytime soon.
The only
I
thing
really
I'd
don't.
like to change is for make it easier for smaller artists to be able to make a living off of, especially if they're very talented and have a following. You
And I
know,
think, I think, I think we're starting to see that. I mean, even if you take COVID out of the, you
equation.
know,
Yeah,
equation there, I think we are seeing that because there are ways where artists are being able to financially be stable that are beyond the means of touring. Something like Bandcamp, um, which, by the way, if you don't use Bandcamp, I highly encourage you to do so because it is a great way to support newer artists. I just got into it myself pretty recently. So I think those means are there. It's just not what it once was.
yeah.
But I think that will improve over time as we continue to, expand in this digital world that we're already in today. Um, I would be interested to see what that would look like 5 years from now, let alone 10 years. So I think we'll see some improvements as far as that goes. But I really do think gone are the days where you're going to have, this big act that's just going to revolutionize music,
That's a shame.
and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that, to be honest with you. I
Well,
really.
the, I keep saying this is the last thing I'm going to say, but I thought of this too. So, like, I kind of made the statement of like, well, if it's it's not really my thing anyway. I've never really been super into. I'm not trying to sound like a freaking hipster here because I'm not, but, um, you know, why does it matter that the popular music scene is not very good and somebody might be thinking like, well, what do you care if you don't really listen to it and you don't you're not really into pop music anyway. I think it's important because it's kind of molding an entire generation of people. It's molding their perspective of what good music is, and I know good music is subjective, but if you were to look at me, I don't know, it's maybe I this really is my own personal bias here, but if you really look just from the standpoint of everything, lyrically, musically, creatively, if you look at what music is now, popular music now, and what it is what it was then. Do any artists now hold a candle to Michael Jackson, to Elvis Presley, to the Beatles, to, you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? Like that. It's important. It's important because it shapes the way that people even think about and listen to music, and it's kind of sad to see that become so commercialized and so homogenized and diluted, in my opinion.
I agree.
And that's the big problem I think I have with it over anything else. Like, people can like whatever they want, I don't care, but
yeah,
when you see stuff like in like Rolling Stone and articles and stuff, it's like, oh, these huge artists that are breaking barriers and all this stuff, and they're doing this. It's like, what are they doing? I don't hear it. Like, explain that to me. I don't, like, how is this what's... I'm a boomer now.
See, I don't think you're seeing any of that per se. I think people that listen to popular music today, they're not thinking, oh, I think this is good music. Like, they're not dissecting it like the way you and I do. And that's kind of going back to the start of this conversation. They're just listening to it because they enjoy it. It's good background music. They saw it on TikTok. They're not thinking like, oh, like this reminds me of Michael Jackson. They didn't listen to that music. You know what I mean? So
well,
I think it's a different consumer mindset.
It's just it's just a shame. It's just a shame. It's a shame because it really takes the depth out of it, and it takes the personal connection to it that a person can have to it out of it, and that's a shame. I think that really is, yeah. It's because art isn't just about, and I'm all about just listening to things because you like it and you want to have a good time, but you know, listening to things that make you think, or at least make you go, you can listen to something and appreciate and be like, wow, they're really doing something incredible here. You know, this artist is really special. They're really doing something unique. It's like, it's a shame that, I don't know. To me, it's a shame,
you know, and not to sound like a broken record at this point.
Yeah.
You know, that's how you and I listen to music.
Yeah,
I
guess so.
And I have to remind myself of that that's just not how most people listen to music today.
And maybe I'm being judgmental. Maybe there's lots of people who are, you know, younger generation listen to a lot of newer music stuff, like, I don't know, whatever people are listening to now, and going, yeah, this is really great, deep stuff.
And I think, you know, this is why I've mentioned this to you off mic before, why I want to start a series where I have friends on the podcast. And most of my friends, to be clear, listen to the music that you and I have spent the last hour bashing. You know, this is why I want to have conversations with, you know, people that listen to today's music. Like, what do you get out of it? You know, like what, you know, to get their perspective, because I'm sure, you know, it's just as simple as, well, I just enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's fine. Despite the fact that I can't wrap my head around it, you know, because again, I'm a nerd like you. Like I just really enjoy experience of music and like dissecting it, tearing it apart. But I have to remind myself that
not everybody's
I'm
like
very
that.
much in the minority.
Yeah.
Literally everyone else I know doesn't do that.
There is you know what though? There is a reason though why there's consistently since people that are even a little younger than us, or a little older than us, that are younger people that are going back to like our parents' generation of music, consistently doing that, going back to the Beatles, going back to the Stones, going back to the Pink Floyd, going back to all these classic artists, and listening to that, because I think there's a lot of people that are like, I was one, you know, when I was in high school, I didn't listen to, like I said, I didn't listen to the popular bands at the time in the mid 2000s, or the popular music. I listened to Led Zeppelin, you know, I listened to Pink Floyd, I listened to The Who. You know, I wasn't listening to any of that stuff, and maybe it's just because I wasn't getting it out of the music I was hearing at the time, and I had to go back. And I know there's a lot of people, like I said, who are really young. They hear an AC/DC song, they hear Back in Black, and they go, hey, what was that? That sounds way different than Nicki Minaj. I want to hear that, you know? And it's not even just that period, like the 90s, 2000s, you know, all the great artists, you know. I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's, I don't know. I think there is, and maybe this is hipster-ish of me to say, but I think
Damn hipster.
maybe that's why I'm not looking for like that big act to revolutionize music again, because I like that there's good music that
It's just kind of under the radar.
no one,
Yeah.
they're like, it's mine. Like, you know, like, not to sound entitled, but it's mine.
But and then it's really special.
No one else out there to ruin it for me.
And then it's really special though if you meet somebody and they know who that artist is. And you're like, you like them? It's like that's an instant bond. It's cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Because even some of the great stuff you just named, like everybody knows Pink Floyd, everybody knows The Who, you know, and that's great because.
Does everybody know I'm on Duel 2 though?
No. I don't even think most of our listeners know who they are.
German krautrock band, they're awesome.
One of these days we're gonna do that krautrock video.
We have to. Anyway, we've been going on for way too long, guys.
We're just at the hour mark, so I think this is
Wrap
a
it
good.
Wrap it up.
I'm trying to.
And I have a green ball in my hand, and if I do the green screen effect, maybe I'll have a big old picture of Nicki Minaj here, or Andrew dressed as Nicki Minaj. But if I do the green screen, this will just be it'll be like I'm holding nothing, and now it'll look like I have like a hole in my hand.
Why are you the way that you are?
Or it'll just be a green ball, because I might not even just do that effect.
Again, why are you the way that you are?
We'll discuss that after we record. Guys.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this rant of ours. We gotta do more rant.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was really good. We diverged a lot, but it was a very interesting topic. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
It's okay. We're so used to our structure of the discography series that I kind of like that we were all over the place.
We structured a little bit. I like that it went from, you know, we went to from one facet to the other. It was cool.
Yeah. This was definitely our most podcast-like episode for sure. But please like us on YouTube. You can also listen to us on whatever.
Anchor, Spotify, Apple Music, all the other streaming stuff. Yep.
Give us a like, comment, social media presence. It's going to happen one of these days.
One of these days, yeah.
One of these days, but not today. Next video.
Look out for Lodger.
Lodger, going back to Bowie. I'm really excited to talk about that one with you, and that's all I got.
That's all I got too. Thank you guys for checking us out. We appreciate it. How do we do? Are we full of crap? Do you love popular music? Am I a boomer? I'm not a boomer. Am I acting like a boomer?
If you say that I'm a boomer in the chat, I'm done with this podcast.
There's gonna be one comment. Kuroda Kayasuki. Andrew is a boomer.
And that's when I quit.
All right, guys, we're out of here.
All right, guys, take care. See you soon.
See you next time. Peace.